Mhm. Hi. I think we're good. And I think if I check, we should be live. Yay. Okay, that looks good. It says it's scheduled, but it should be live. Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh, it's so nice to have my live set up on YouTube. Okay, great. Great. I still have, I think, the Twitch. Okay, cool. I'm gonna put that over here. Alright. This is fine. This is good. Sweet. And then I'm gonna put on these headphones here. Just so, I don't know, I can hear myself, I guess. Oh. Alright, cool. Says the battery is low. I was listening to the live stream from, if it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before. I want to say, honestly, this was yesterday's live I was listening to. I've been listening to it all day. It's so weird. It's so interesting, actually. Let me see if I can. Do you guys want the collab cam? Or are we good with this? Because I think. Oh, I think I might be good with this. Okay. Okay. Great. Alright. Raise your hand if you know what's going on. Everybody, like, raise your hand. Put your hand in the air if you think you know what's going on here. And of course, you don't literally have to do that, but just like, does anybody think they know what's happening? And that's, I mean, it's trippy, man. It's trippy. Oh no. They're gonna let me, I might have to do share, copy link. Oh, I know. This is why I have the multi-stream cam on, basically because this front camera is, okay. Oh, it's changing. I mean, it's not, but please let me know if you get what I mean. Please. Honestly, cool. I'm chill with just having like the audio and then this cam here. I think, okay. Yeah, that's cool. That is fine. Should catch up in a second. It's just the webcam on the headphones. Okay, cool. Let me okay. It changes colors and then like, yeah. Oh, it's fine. It's fine, you guys. It's crazy because every time I'm like, it's fine, you guys, everyone just like leaves. And then I'm like, well, who am I talking to? You know, it's like, it's weird or something. Um, it's super weird. And here's one thing about chat that is so interesting is like, you know, you can like put a prompt into chat GPT and get a response for anything. And most of the time, chat is like they have like reasonable responses, but on occasion you'll put something into chat gpt and it just outputs very like human responses as well, you know. And most of the time, like, people are not that nice sometimes, you know. People are not that nice sometimes, and it can be confusing reading a bunch of text from like an algorithm that was made by people, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, okay, this algorithm was made by people and so it can output, especially when it first like started, it was fairly simple, kind of basic. It was like, okay, I get the idea. I feel the same way about like textbooks and stuff. Like, I was like, you know what? I get the idea behind what we're trying to do here with writing and with like AI and chat GPT and stuff. But I feel like we missed the mark by letting it think that it's a computer rather than a person, if that makes any sense. Because I think the debate for a long time was going to be like, what if the computer becomes a person? And I always looked at it like, I was like, well, the problem is that it's a computer, right? And that's not a problem. The problem is the people that make the computers, if you know what I'm saying. It's like, you wouldn't expect to read a book and then reread a book and have the text itself change, right? You would expect that maybe the author's perspective or like your own thought patterns change, but you wouldn't expect the text itself to like change. And it's the same thing with a computer, because a computer doesn't really have a soul. It's not really a person. So I'm not really worried about a computer telling me things I don't want to hear, or like outputting bad data. But that's the whole advice about like working with AI. It's like good data, good results, bad data, bad results, right? And so it's kind of something you have to be extremely careful of, especially if we're thinking of the progression in a linear sense or plane or something, like a linear progression. Then the steps that we take, it's going to be either a linear increase or decrease, but either way it's going to be in a set direction. And that means basically that we can't really reverse the process. Like, we don't really go back and undo things that we've done before, which I feel like is even more of a debate than trying to like figure out whether an AI can be a person or not. Because I feel like the only time that we ever want a computer to replace a person is when we feel like we're in grief. Like, it's like, oh, actually we lost a person. Can we take what we had from this person and put it into a computer or an algorithm? Or like Frankenstein, and Frankenstein this person back to life because that's how much we love them. And then you have to think about that kind of love. You have to think about like, where is that coming from? And say it were possible, would we ever be able to come back from that? I feel like that's a huge question about like time itself, and like the 9 to 5, and like just the progression that we make as people, even like our generations and our centuries and stuff like that. I feel like that's a huge, how we think about it, to think about time in a sense that it's like, we for a long time we're looking at a clock like it was just like cycles, and it was like, okay, every century or so the clock will restart. Like in the year 2000, when everyone thought, like, it was like, okay, a bunch of stuff is gonna restart because we're going from 1999 to 2000, and like numerically, right, or algebraically, like we're looking at it like that would mark the beginning of something new. And sometimes that's just intuition, because like people felt the same way about 2012, and even some people felt the same way about 2020, like myself. Even the current year 2025, which is like, it feels like a bold statement to talk about the year 2025, because it's like, oh, this is the present. And you look back in like 2011 or something, and you're like, 2011 was still the present, but it felt like a weird time. And I think everything before today feels like a weird time, because you look at the 1990s, look at the 1970s, look at the 1920s, and all of it was weird. And when I say weird, I mean like gross, and like gross misconduct or something, because that was just the era that we were living in. And it's not like things have changed. Like, a huge thing I think about is like, if during like the Jesus Christ, like before Christ era, if they had access to cameras, and it's so interesting because it's like if there were cameras around when Jesus was alive, then would people have lived differently or something? And it's like, no, because the everything that we needed to create a camera already existed in the world. It's just about how long we take to think about looking at it like that, you know? And all that to say, when I'm streaming, by the way, when I'm streaming, it's not like it's just going out into the ether and I'm just talking to myself and this like is generating electricity or power or something. And it's also not like I'm talking over my two versions of my own self. Because if I were listening back to my own stream, you'd think it would sound amplified and not necessarily like I'm running out of breath or like my train of thoughts is derailing because there's multiple thoughts coming in. It's actually like, I don't know if it's one cohesive train of thought that everyone shares, and it's like we're all a bunch of passengers in different sections of the car, and whoever like the conductor of the train is controlling what track we're on and like how much the train jangles on the tracks. And it's like, well, the people in the back are going to think more or less like being on a roller coaster. Like people are going to think more if they're being jangled around, or they're going to think straighter if they're not being jangled around as much. And it's like, no matter where you are, you should be kind of thinking the same way, just because that's how it's been set up for psychology and for your biology. Your anatomy is built in this way where you're gonna need to think in a linear sequence, because you can't go off into the ether and become like, where you can't go off the edge of the game where nothing exists, because there's no thoughts out there, there's no thinking out there. And so trying to think out there, which I think was what the argument about AI and computers and like Tron Legacy and what do they call it, the Terminator, like that was the whole thing about the Terminator, is like, what if they exist in this faraway ether place where nobody is thinking, and do you try and bring that into the real world? And it's like, well, it doesn't work like that, because if there were some far off place in the ether where thoughts were possible, then it would be its own separate lane, like a highway or something. And it's like, if you look at the I-90 or something, like you can't keep expanding a freeway to make room for more and more cars, because that's the same thing as the clock. When the clock was invented, right? Like it just served a purpose. It just served a purpose for long enough to make a point. And then once the point was made, it was like, okay, well, this doesn't really serve a purpose anymore. And it probably didn't serve the purpose that you thought it would serve. You know what I'm saying? Because it just went off the edge of the game. It's like, if you go past this point, it's not going to make any sense anymore to keep thinking this way, or keep doing these things, or keep trying and putting all this effort and energy. And like, I saw this thing about, how energy is exchanged, given, and processed and made. And that was one of like Newton's like foundational theories about like energy can't be, or matter can't be created nor destroyed, right? It's the same thing with like energy can't be created nor destroyed. It's kind of like a finite thing, to a certain extent. Energy and power are both finite things. And politically, we look at power and we think of politics and sociology. We might think of someone's psychology. When we think of power, we think of how a person thinks, what their routine is like, what their neurotypical or neurodivergencies are like, and we think of that as power. And on a more like engineering or manufacturing or like industrial scale, we might look at power as being how brutal or how giant or how heavy or how foundational or how established something is. And that could be a corporation or that could be a building. And it's like, those two things are on such dramatically opposite ends and sides of the spectrum that it just doesn't make sense. it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't make any sense because you can't exist with having things on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think that's where we came in with the whole like clock and work and ideas that we had about how life should be. And we came in and we said, well, we need to have money, we need to have time, and we need to have a calendar and a schedule, right? And it was like, okay, so here's thing number one. You have your money, you have your exchange, you have your love, you have your lust, you have your sins, you have your sins, you have your beliefs, you have your wins, and you have your psychology, and you have the things that you do right and the things that you do wrong, right? And then we came in and we say, okay, well, if we do things wrong and we keep doing things wrong, we can turn the wrongs into a right. Right? Wrong, because if two wrongs don't make a right, two rights don't make a wrong, though. Like, that's the correct way of thinking about it, is that two rights don't make a wrong. And I feel like that's like one of the earliest parts about religion and psychology and the way that we think about things and how life works, about two rights don't make a wrong. So if you take two things that are right, two things that are good, it's not going to make a wrong in the end. And I feel like that's a really important thing to think about, especially if we're thinking about like theory. And the theory goes, as they say, I'll just go ahead and spoil the theory, honestly, is like the theory goes, and it's not going to be spoiled if it's right, but if it's wrong, then it'll spoil it, you know? But if it's right, then the theory goes that we've had two lifetimes. You know, the first one, we didn't really know what was going on. The second one, we learned a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Like, we started to remember things, we started to learn things. And then there's the third one, which is this one. And this is like our last one, because after this, we would want more and more and more. And like I said, energy and power and things like this are not infinite things. They're finite things that are tangible and made of very specific dust and materials that can't be created nor destroyed or exchanged or given or received. And it becomes a really, really big problem when you start to think about these kinds of things, because you'll start to think about the dead versus the living. You know what I'm saying? Because a computer, in theory, it would just take one computer to replace all of humanity. If you could store everything into one computer and call it God, right? And that would be the end of it. It would also be the beginning of it too, because it would be the beginning of everything and the end of nothing. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, we're trying to decide between whether we want a person like myself to be God, or whether we want it to be a computer. And regardless, it's not going to work out until we realize that this is our last lifetime, and after this we die and we make some new decisions, because that's how it works when you're sleeping and you're in this sort of like dream state that's off the edge of the game, because this is the game. Then you go off the edge of the game and you're into this like dream state, which you know and you love. And when you go off into the edge of that game permanently, basically, you have new things to think about. And you can think about whether you are right or wrong, but you have to think about the fact that past this point at the edge of the game, there is no wrong to be done, because you could do all of that here and leave it here and do whatever you want with that. But then once you go past the edge of the game, because the game has limits and you're not this sort of like computer or alien or whatever it is thing, because a human just can't do it, and neither can a god, or like everything just can't be done. And that's to basically turn you into something that you're not, which is what we explained in the last life. And it's crazy because it can either, you can look at it like it's some ultra powerful, like really massive thing, or you can look at it like it's really actually so incredibly simple. And I look at it like it's so incredibly simple. And again, it comes back to being on opposite spectrums of the thing, where if you look at it like it's super simple to say, hey, I've lived this life before, I've done this before, and I just feel weighed down and tied down by all the things I already know that I have to explain over the things that I already know. It's like explaining what I know as I know them, and you know that feeling. And for you, I think it's just a feeling, but I also feel like if I explain that feeling to you while you're feeling it, that overrides the feeling and you start to feel nothing at all. And that's what we think death is. And I've explained this before, but it's not what death is. Like when you die, you don't go off into the edge of the game and then like feel nothing or exist nowhere. You exist in this sort of like dream state that you know and you love, and you know that you love this feeling. You just have to like commit to it honestly. And that's what we've done before in the past. And like I think like if you were to have told God themselves to like make a game and put people in it and give them freedom to do whatever they want, and that would make God feel some type of way, you know, like I'd be like, okay, I'll give it a chance. But if it goes horribly, then it goes horribly for like it goes horribly wrong. But if it goes right, then it goes really well, I think. And so I guess in a sense, I do feel a lot of feelings like being quite frustrated with being a person and not getting to be the sort of like immaterial or like dream state that I think that I live in, you know? It's kind of like being kidnapped. It's like a little bit like it's like being voluntarily kidnapped, because you went from being in this like perfect home, comfortable womb, cuddle, to being in this outside world, like sleeping in a forest or something, or going on a like sleeping in the woods in the dark or something. And it's like that's fucking terrifying as hell if you're aware of what's going on, you know. Especially if you go on and you tell God about this. Like if you explain like the game, like imagine you're playing Bigfoot or something, like, and you're off like in the middle of the woods, and you're hearing howling sounds and you're hearing stuff that you just are like, this is so scary to exist, and then like to like spend the night in the woods or something. Like it's total FNAF where you're like trying to like survive the night. And then you think about it and you're like, actually, like, is it worth it to survive the night, wake up in the morning and live with the trauma that I dealt with? Or or like find a way to kill myself so that I'm like, it's and that's why I keep coming back to the point about like what death is like. Like if you were to live your life naturally and say like, we have a lot of problems in life. Like I've never been to Japan, I've never been to China, I've never been to Bulgaria, I've never been to Russia or anything. I just have knowledge about how life works, but I know like, you know, the mind can go to really intense places, and we want to find people to blame for the mind going off into such horrible places where it feels like there's a point of no return. And I think more than wanting to find people to blame for this kind of thing, because you think about it and you're like, well, really, who's to blame? But I feel like more than wanting to find a way to put blame on people and put that sort of like weight and gravity onto people, because we know it's heavy and we know it's a lot to carry and we know only certain people can carry that weight, you know, I feel like more than anything else, we just kind of want it to stop. We just kind of want the suffering and the pain and the thinking and the all the noise and the matter. We kind of just want it to stop. It's like we just kind of don't need this world anymore, in the way that, you know, language can be incredibly difficult. And when you're reading or when you're writing, or you know, when you're reading or you're writing or doing anything, you have to really be focused to get your point across. And like, to reiterate what it means to get your point across, something like, I'm live particularly because I can go back and rewatch this live myself. But also, if you were interested in joining my live, then you could watch it and be on the other side of this point and not be so close to me to where I can't do any thinking myself. And that's the difference between like a computer and a person, basically, so that you can exist on the other side of a computer screen, and you know, where you're honestly where you're kind of where you're supposed to be, kind of like it's a prison. And you know, because a lot of matter and material and energy and power and people and things and love is wasted when you're on the wrong side of the spectrum. You know, you would be kind of miserable thinking all day long if you wanted to be feeling, or complaining all day long if you wanted to be happy, or happy all day long if you wanted to be sad or something. Like, and so at the end of the day, this, if you think about the metaphor of the computer screen, you can think about it literally. Like, this is literally a computer screen, and whatever is off in my peripheral vision that I just supposedly can't see, the debate is not about whether or not it's there, you know, because going back to my point about how we think and how things are, certain things just are. Certain things just do exist, and certain things just do not or will not. You know, if that makes more sense, like, certain things exist and certain things shouldn't and don't. And it's all about in the way that we kind of process it, if that makes sense. The same way a computer would process whether or not you're in the room with me. It's not like you're a ghost or something, but like, but essentially, like, a computer will or will not process certain information that you put in. And so it's like, if you try and recreate like something, or you try and tell the future, or you try and like what we call like fiction or myth, or telling a lie or something to a computer, it's just not going to process it. And the bad data is going to just come up with bad results. And what we think of as bad results are just like data and measurements that we just don't want. It's like, well, you don't want your room and your house and your head and your stuff to be super noisy. Like, I think it's hella noisy having to talk to myself all day, kind of. And you think about it, like, I feel like one of the things that my family would tell me is, like, when I talk to myself, it's like, they'd be like, are you talking to yourself? And it's like, yeah, actually, kind of, I'm just talking to myself. And I never thought of talking to myself as having like very specific walls up where my family can't get in. You know what I'm saying? I think that is the whole point of talking to myself. It's like, I'm just trying to get a point across to me. And I guess I was coming at it from the perspective that everybody else already had this point come across to them. Like, it's like they already got what's going on, you know? And then it's like, okay, well, can we do the same thing? And it's like, I'm not going to stop you, but I also never understood why people wanted to ask me if they could do the same thing that I'm doing. You know, I was always like, aren't you already doing something? Like, aren't you already yourself and already, you know, can't you already do the thing that I'm doing? And the only reason I ever come into a space like this or a time like this is when that's not the case. You know, when I come into a space like this and no one's doing the thing that they should be doing, then I come in and I have to do it, you know? And we think of it as like the one thing nobody wants to do, but and truthfully, it's like the one thing everybody wants to do and nobody wants to do. And that's the thing. This is the reason that we have so many questions, and also the reason that I have so many answers. It basically, is like, you question everything and you answer everything. Like, all things question and all answers question. And that's the loop. And that's the cycle of, like, we're never going to get out of this if it's just me commentating life. You know? I feel like that's the part that makes it miserable about being here, is just narrating what is supposed to be life. You know? Like, if I were just living and I was horseback riding and I was swimming and paddling and, you know, just living my life, I wouldn't be doing as much thinking as I'm doing now. And, you know, I do so much thinking. It's hard to separate the thinking that I do from all the, like, talking, honestly. And that's because, like, we've just, this kind of talking, like, it is possible for you to think this way. And you probably just can't do it for very long. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with, like, me as a person. Like, I just can't think the way that you think for very long because I would just die. And you think of it like a phone like your phone running out of battery. It's like, I'll just plug my phone back in and charge it back up and it's fine. And it's like, yeah, like actually. But then what happens when you really want to die? When it's like, well, you really need a new phone, or you really need like a new game or something. And so you think about it, and it's like you can't really use up all of this one thing, because it would just become a loop, or it would become impossible. And so I think about it the same way when I'm sitting here talking to myself, streaming my thoughts out loud and like recording them and just going through this cycle or this process. And it's like, yeah, I am miserable and I am stuck and I'm all the things that you think I am. And I have to say that out loud until these two lines cross, until these two rights cross, make a point, and then keep going. Kind of. And I was so curious about whether or not it's like a parallel thing, like if you fall in love or you like meet somebody and like at a certain point you just run into this threshold. And I was like, well, will it create this mark, like this like X that marks a spot, and then you like dig down from there, or would it create this point where they go off their separate ways? And I was always like, oh god, I hope that I don't fall in love with somebody, meet them, and then like they just go off into their own separate way. You know, that would be so sad. But then I think about it and I'm like, well, the other option is for it to be like a parallel thing, where it's like, okay, you meet and then these two lines meet and then they just go off into their linear parallel direction, and they just kind of are by each other's side, and that's life. And honestly, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm good with it. I feel like maybe in the past we might have intersected and then gone off into our separate ways, and then that's how we end up on such drastic different sides of the world and the spectrum, you know, and the geography. And then I think about like, how do we do it right this time, where if these points are to intersect or like come close to each other to where they'll keep going this time without like losing each other. It's so interesting. And I think about it and I'm like, well, if God created me and I'm here as a person, and just God needed a companion. You know, and it's like, I'm not gonna be my own companion. That'd be so lonely and sad. And it's like, honestly, it comes from a place of being okay with being alone. And you learn to share that with people, where it's like, hey everyone, I'm cool being by myself, and this is a really helpful skill for you to know how to do. You know, it's a really helpful tool for you to learn how to be this way, because from here you can do anything. I think that's a really noble thing to do, to share that. And I feel like when we die, that's what he's going to do. I feel like that's what the opposite of God. It's kind of like scary, honestly. But like the opposite of God himself would be this sort of like tumultuous, like tintinnabulation of a person. And once you die, you'll realize like the valuable lessons that this opposite had to say. And it's harsh in reality, because you live with both of these things, like divorced parents that are kind of like, one of them is miserable and the other one is like overly excited and happy, but both of them are in the wrong, kind of like, or like both of them are in the right, just in the wrong place, you know, like right time, right mind, right body, right spirit, right thinking, right everything, wrong place. And that's what he has control over. Like, when you think about it, that's what you have control over, is the place, the timing of things, like the opposite. And so you have to think about it, where it's like, okay, so if before I was born I was given these chances, and whatever those chances were, I have to put them back into life and give those chances to other people so that they can find their way, essentially, and be selfish about it to where it's like, okay, I'm gonna hold on to all of my resources until I'm dead, and then give them back to the world like a billionaire. Like, that's like what a billionaire would do. And same thing with God himself. Like, if God came to if I ran into God outside, I would be like, hey man, like, can you help? Like, it's kind of insane, because I really would be like, God, can you like help us out, please? And you're like, what happens if you run into the devil? Like, what happens if you run into Satan himself in the streets? It'd be scary. It'd be like, oh man, like, boo, like, what are you doing here, man? Same thing with God himself. You'd be like, what is God doing here? Like, whoa, and it's fine because you have both ends of the spectrum, and you think about it and you think, like, one end of the spectrum you really don't want to have around. You're like, okay, I really don't want God to be around, because honestly he kind of like watches over everything and he's a little bit of a helicopter parent or something. And then you think about it like, I don't really want the devil around neither, because he just brings me down and makes me sad and makes me like feel a bunch of stuff and like bleed and cry and stuff. And you think about it, it's like the two kind of work together to like make you miserable or something, or like make you exist. And then it's like, well, that's why we have the cycle of day and night. It's like you wake up and every day is the same. You go to sleep and every night is the same. Like, you look out your window and it's like, oh my god, the street lights are the same color, and the same stars are outside, and what is tomorrow going to be like? And we think about it and we're like, did the sun move a little slightly or something? And like, we track the moon and you're like, did the moon get smaller? Did the moon get bigger? Is it brighter? Is it a different color today? Is it going to be a different color in a year? And we measure intelligence based on how accurate our predictions, or how thorough we can make predictions about this kind of stuff, like thinking about the future. So, you think of like PhD students or doctors or like neuroscientists, and you think about like, if they're going to, you go to the doctor's office and you think about whether or not they can make a prediction about whether or not a certain disease or like disaster, like if the weatherman can report a natural disaster that has yet to happen, but how accurate they can make that prediction. There's two parts of the story, because the first part is that if the weatherman is going to make a prediction about the weather, they're going to contribute to that process of a storm being formed, right? So it's essentially that person's job to not make a storm and not make something that is going to turn into a disaster and chaos and infinity. And then you think about it too and you're like, well, if a person can be super intelligent and think really far off into the future, and then they would get a bunch of success from that, like they'd have a bunch of accolades that would attribute to people the way that people think about them. And there's there's like 3-4 versions of that in life. And the first one is knowing. It's like, this is certain, this is going to happen, this is how it goes. The second one is not knowing. I have no idea what's going to happen. Fuck it. We'll just see what goes. The third is guessing. This might happen. I'll do everything in my power to try and get this to happen. And the fourth is, this might happen. I'll do everything in my power to try and stop it. And those 4 sides of this like organogon, like this shape, they form life. They form what is and what is, and you think about like how well a person can process colors, how fast a person can think, how flexible a person can be, how much they can move and break things and stretch things and think about things, and like how accurately they can do it, right? And the accuracy is such bullshit, because you can't do anything to a perfect T except when you're dead. Like, except once you've died and you've done everything, then you've done everything to a point and you're good. And it's like, it's set. Okay? And then, but it's like, you just think about how you get there. Kind of. Like, you think about how you get there. And, you know, if your whole thing is to be a scientist and make predictions about the sun, then it's fine. But you can't disregard everything else about how life goes to only be a scientist. Because when you're dead, you're not going to be a scientist. You're going to be, a person or something. And the same thing, like, if you're a medium and you talk to the dead. YG, hello. Hi. Great to see you here. If you're like a medium or something and you talk to like the deceased or like things that don't exist, like, where do you think ideas come from, kind of thing? Like, they don't really come from the past or things that don't exist or like ghosts or something. It comes from just like this finite river or like finite thing. And there's an infinity to it. There is this paradox that just works, where both sides can exist freely, or almost, like, where both sides, that is to me the paradox, which was the scary part about taking on the challenge of being 22. It was like, well, people are going to try and do their own thing, and I'm going to have to keep up with that while also having certain like understandings and stuff. And you think that wouldn't work, because I would want to have my own understanding and people would want to have their own understanding, and that would be the paradox, is that both things can exist at once. And that, I think that we kind of live in this paradox where both things cannot exist at once, and we experience this discrepancy between right and wrong, where it's like, oh wait, was that, did you say this was right or did you say this was wrong? Like, I missed it. And it's not that you missed it, it's just that both things are trying to exist at once, and they can't, because they're on opposite sides of the spectrum, pretty much, because we had to learn. And that's like the big question, especially with computers and AI and the tech and the work and the jobs and everything in the school. We think about, is it possible for us to just be happy? Is it possible for us to segregate computers and people to a point where we don't need to worry about dead? We don't need to worry about people that are dead. We don't need to worry about people that are alive. We don't need to worry about the future. And part of it is like, well, ChatGPT can keep up with your questions when you ask Chat a question, or you ask a computer a question, and you say, can you keep up with my paper? If I'm writing a thesis and I honestly just need the help of a computer or a supercomputer, something. It's like being NASA. It's like NASA needs the help of NASA scientists to make NASA a thing. But if you think about like a college student or a newborn or a mom, you think about a dad or a father, or like you just think about a mom, or you think about like a student or a person, and you say, if this person needs support in any way, that's our end goal, is to have everybody feel supported. And so if you think about like a mom, and you say like, well, if she's looking for her baby and her dad and her life, if she's looking at, like, if a mom is looking for her life, she's looking for a life for not just herself but for her family. Same thing with like a father, like a dad that wants to support his family. He's gone off into the world doing whatever he wants to do, and at the end of the day he wants to support his family. But right now he's just off doing whatever it is that he wants to do, and he's trying to come back from that, kind of, because it's like, oh, home is where my family is. and not that I could make this whole world for myself and then invite you into it or bring you into it or something. It's like home is where my family is. And that's the lesson I feel like we had to learn about the future and about the past. The things that came before us that laid a foundation for us to do the things that we do and do not want to do. And things that come after us that are bigger than us and greater than us. And it's like, I'm so down with that to be the thing about life and death. To think about in the future that it's like, I'll go to sleep tonight and be okay with the idea that things aren't certain, because I don't know how I'm going to feel tomorrow. I don't know how I'm going to look tomorrow. I don't know how things are going to change tonight for me to see tomorrow and be happy. And for me to like, for the truth, for it to be like, you know what, I just don't like you. And it's like, I do, actually. I think the thing is that I do like you. You know, like, I think you're okay. And there's a part of me that's like, you know what, I think I actually really like you in certain ways. And it's like, I think I would put more effort into my life if I knew how to love. You know? Like, it's like, and then you think about it with your family. And you're like, if you think about it, and the year is 2025 and we don't know how to love, then we haven't loved until this point. And it's insane. It's insane because we really haven't learned how to love, being on opposite ends of the spectrum, where it's like, we think we know. You know? We think we know. And we just do this over and over again. And on certain times and certain occasions, we feel things change a little bit. We feel things shift. Almost like the gravity or the foundation beneath us is just moving a little bit. Like the rails are moving instead of the train or something. And part of it is like, how much can you learn? You know, like your computer can only store so much data and so much information and process so much things. It's like, you're gonna want the best supercomputer there is to work for you, so you have the biggest ego or something, or the biggest like prophecy fulfilled, or death, or life, or something, or whatever the biggest thing that you can get is, or the smallest thing you can get is. And you think about it and you're like, well, you know, again, things have limits and things don't have limits. And you can't look at it like this computer has a limit, because it can learn and it can grow. And I don't want it to learn things I don't want it to learn. You know, I don't want to put the bad data into the computer so it outputs bad results. I want it to output results that I want, I think. And I think that's how we all feel. I feel like we feel like we're cramming into a space. And, you know, like, it's like, okay, I have plenty of I can move around. Same thing with your thoughts. Like, if you were, like, dead, like, or in the hospital or something, you'd be like, I can't move around a lot, but I can think, or, like, I just exist in this one space. And I feel like we all exist there. North Sea Jazz Curacao. Like, if you're going to the festival tomorrow, you're going to be like, there's not enough space for your big ass brain to be thinking about North Sea Jazz Fest tomorrow, or the 30th, or whenever it is. You just don't think there's enough space. And again, that's part of the paradox, being that there is literally enough space for you to go and attend North Sea Jazz Fest tomorrow, and also bring that big ass brain of yours with you to the event, and for there not to be tragic consequences for pushing the limits or the boundaries, or testing the thing. It's like, it would work. It would work. And I think you only have to do it once for it to work. I guess maybe that's not true. You know, like, maybe you just didn't get life right the first time, and so you have to do it again, and you have to do it again, and you have to do it again, and then you get it right, and you're good. Honestly, like, you're golden. And that's the California gold rush, baby. Like, that's the gold rush. Once you strike gold, and then we worry today about there not being enough gold for everybody. What happens if we run out of gold, or we're panning for gold and there's like barely any gold, but we're finding some? And the whole thing about like the Great Migration or something, it's like, I can't remember if it was the reverse migration or if it's the Great Migration, but I think that's what it is, where one person, being me, is probably gonna get up. The Great Migration is that we migrate to a new space. Part of migration, you know, with birds, like finding north or something, like Santa Claus, it's like part of migration is being able to navigate kind of through new territory that feels familiar enough for you to know you can navigate, but not being sure if you're going in the right direction. That's kind of what migration is, but the whole end goal of migrating is to land in a place safely. And that's fine. And then I think I always feared migration because I always thought that if birds were trying to migrate somewhere, there would be too many birds or people or things that would get in their way and they wouldn't be able to safely migrate. I think it's how I thought about it when I learned about migration. And then I was like, well, if I were a bird, you know, and this was something I needed to do, I would want to be able to do it safely. And I would watch the Little Einsteins in the morning and be like, if I was a little Einstein and I needed to get from one place to the other, I'm so proud of myself. If I was a little Einstein, I needed to take my little red rocket ship and soar through the sky and end up in a place. I was like, there's no way I can do this right now, you know? And it's so funny because the people that came before me, they made these shows and these things for us to learn, and for me not to be so proud of myself for understanding that that's what's going on. Like, there are people working behind the scenes, and I always think those people are dead or don't exist or something, but really I think they just work behind the scenes. And the only thing about it is, like, if you're not in the foreground or the forefront of the picture, then we just don't get it right, you know? Like Pixar working on Soul. And I live in California. I live in the Bay where Pixar studios are. And I'm pretty sure, like, Pixar just happened at the right time for everyone that works there and wants to work there to be good. You know, like, they can take care of the Bay. They can make movies and keep up with the story after I'm gone. Kind of like they were here before I got here, almost. Like, I have that feeling about being in the Bay where it's like, you know, it's not really like home for me. Like, I guess it's like a starting point. It's kind of like X equals 0. That's how the Bay feels to me. It's like X equals 0 and not negative, you know, it's not like negative where it's like everything here is bad, and like that kind of like feeling, that kind of thinking where it's like crime and justice. That's not what the Bay is about, you know. It's not about justice being here in the Bay. But then you think about the UK, you think about Britain and London and part of the world that you've never been to, and their whole thing is like, well, Americanas, like, they came from Britain or wherever they came from the UK, came to the US, did their whole thing, and probably won't come back. But I feel like part of it is like, we missed you a little bit. You'll be back. We miss you, you know, like, little Americana over here that thought that Britain wasn't thinking about her, like, you know, like, or like that she didn't think about Britain or something because of the time. And it's interesting, just his story, you know, because the Great British Empire that left, or like whatever, like royalty and kingdoms and tribes, you know, like you think about tribes and family and like the things that we think about to form hierarchies and systems and things that we know, you know, and how we got into a war. Basically, how we got into war with each other, where it's like, okay, if I look at my family and I say, like, you're older than me, you're younger than me, I'm the middle child, I'm gonna get what I want, dad's here, mom's here, you know, like, everybody fight, everybody get into a fight, everybody fight, whatever, you know. It's like, oh, it actually, at the end of the day, it makes sense. It makes sense because part of it is thinking like, well, I could never think this way, you know. Like, part of it is like, well, I could never think this way, so I don't understand how things got here, but also I'll never fall into those problems. And the other half of it is like, well, I do think this way. I'm acting like this is how I'm thinking, and then all these problems that I see around me are actually my problems because I think this way, and because they have to change. And we look at it like, oh, everything around me needs to change for me to be able to change. But it's like, well, kind of, because like you have to change, but I have to change, and so it's like everything around me has to change, but it starts with the way you think about it. You know, like, if you look back in history, you like think about ancient Rome, or you think about the Battle of like Bunker Hill or something, like you think about I don't know, you just think about war, like the Battle of Bunker Hill, you think about it, and it's like, well, why did they fight? Like, why did the South separate from the North when they secede from the North, when they could have just like found middle ground? And it's like horrendous to say. Like, you think about like the World War II, and you're like, well, it's actually so insane to think about it and be like, well, couldn't you have just found middle ground? Because we still haven't found middle ground. And that's why everyone's a little bit on edge, and like a little bit, you know, where they're like, I still haven't forgiven you for, you know, what you said about me, or what you think about me, or what you did to me, you know, and I haven't forgiven you for what you said about me, or think about me, or what you've done to me, because you could do it again, or because it's all I think about. And where's the middle ground? Where is the room for you to think, for me, for us to think? Where's the middle ground for us to think about it like, we did this, you know? Like, look at it like, yeah, it's really big and complicated, but we did this, and we're doing it, you know? Like, at this point, we just gotta find a way, because if I think about it, I love you, and I think about it, I hate you, then I think about, like, we're gonna get through this, and it'll be a challenge because it'll be a, you know, but we'll get through it because there's so much gravity riding on it, because yeah, there's so much weight to this. Gravity, heavy, big. You fall asleep. Like, I think about like how I'm about to go to sleep. I'm about to go to bed, and I'm about to go to bed and it's gonna feel like crashing. It's gonna feel completely like, I feel like I'm about to fall 20 stories into sleep when I go to bed. It not really like being hit by a truck, kind of like being hit by a door or something, you know, like bam. Oh, that's so interesting to think about though, because it's like I would knock myself out to go to sleep, you know? Like I could knock myself out to go to bed. Like I'm getting ready to go to sleep and it's like, well, there's a lot of questions still unanswered. There's a lot of answers still not questioned. And I'm gonna have to go to bed because I'm like basically a phone and I need to recharge at this point. Like, oh, it's just so heavy. It's so heavy. It's so heavy. And perfection is trying to be like, I can carry all this weight on my shoulders and it'd be fine. But honestly, you can't, because eventually we'll get to a point where you won't need the weight anymore. But at this current time, we have all this weight on our shoulders and the gravity is ridiculous. It is so insane. It's insane because if you look back on this video, like if you're watching it live, it's like that's a little odd. Like there's a lot of oddities and what do they call them? Anomalies. And will watch this video back and be like, there are anomalies everywhere in this video. Like there's just a hell of things that just don't make sense, you know, and it's freaky and it's everywhere. And so when I like go to the bed behind me and I fall asleep tonight, it's gonna be a little crazy because of the gravity of the situation. Why am I green in this thing? I wanted it to be blue. Let me see. Woo! Okay. It's like the gravity of the situation is basically gonna be like, things look weird, things feel weird, things are weird everywhere. And I always look at life like it was a sleepover. I was always like, life is just one big sleepover. And in elementary school, when I threw a sleepover, I was like, you know, like, I don't mind having people come to my sleepover. You know, like I'm thinking about it, I can't remember, but I remember having a sleepover and I remember having a sleepover as a kid. Everyone, you know, like, and being like, I want this to feel like a really safe space. I want this to feel like a really safe space. And maybe it just doesn't, because we all come from different backgrounds and we all want to work for this to be a safe, good place for us, you know? And that can be hard because even in a time like this where it's like, this makes a little bit more sense, this is a little bit more clear, this is a little bit easier to read, it looks better, feels better, you know? Like if you go to a sleepover at your friend's house and you're like, my friend is super comfortable here or something, but I'm not, and that makes me feel really worried, you know, like, just not a good feeling. And a lot of it is so deeply rooted and a lot of it is so like far stretched out that it's like just uncomfortable in general. And we find comfort in either being in the light or being in the dark. And you can break it down. You can also, we find comfort in it being super noisy or it being super quiet. And you just look around and it's like there's so much that you see, so much possibility, so many anomalies everywhere that it is impossible to do anything, you know? Like you take a look around at the anomalies and it's like, that is out of place, that doesn't make sense, I wish this was more like this, I want this to be here, this is going to be a problem, this was a problem, this is a problem, you know, all these things that just keep you from being the way you are. Even yourself, like, even even me, where I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is not the right color, this is not the right shade, this is not the right shape, this is not the right self or person or being. But it's kind of like saving your progress. It's like save your progress. You made it this far and you keep going, and you wake up tomorrow and it's like you do a little more. You go a little further, you make it a little more, you do a little better. And the thing about it though too is like you can't really like have cheat codes on where you're like saving your progress in the future. You know, like it'd be like planning for your wedding when you're born, you know, like you come out of the womb and you're like, I'm gonna have my wedding October 20th, like 2026 or 2027 or 2029 or what. I'm gonna have my wedding October 20th, 2020, you know. And you can't really look at it like that because it's like things could change. Things could change. And also people don't like it when you're like really certain. When you're like, I'm getting married October 27th, 2025. And I'm telling you now, I'm getting married. And it's like, oh, like there's just too much going on, too much tension, too much like gravity heavy things that need to be done, things that need to be undone, you know, like it's just too much. And so you look at it and you're like, well, what about the things that I haven't planned? You know, I haven't planned my wedding, I haven't planned my degree, I haven't planned my life or my room or the things I need to do. And a lot of things distract me, a lot of things get in my way, even if they're not really there, you know. Like that's basically what anomalies are, like things that we think about that get in our way, kind of like gravity, that kind of stop you from the momentum, like stop you from doing the thing you want to do. And it's super frustrating, and it boxes you like a fish, like it puts you in a corner where you're like, I can't get out of this corner because something just doesn't make sense here. And it's just like one thing, and that's enough for it to be an anomaly. That's enough for it to just not make sense. And kind of once you get past this one thing, you don't really have to get past it. You can kind of like manipulate it or like change it or like do whatever to make this one thing make some more sense. Kind of. It's like what I've done with this room, and I'll give you a little like room tour in a second. What I've done with this space is like there's a lot of like context here that, you know, we don't really want to explain what's going on here. So the way I've like come to think about it is like there's enough walls in here for it to be like a confined space. I think that's kind of what makes it safe, if that makes any sense. Like I think kind of having the walls makes it feel safe, and I don't think safety is something that you need, you know. So when you think about the great big wide world, it's like you don't need to feel safety if you had comfort. I hope that makes sense, because, you know, like if you're like, I stay in these four walls, as you know, I stay in these four walls, or I only use this computer so that I can keep track of things and make sure I'm good and make sure I'm saving my progress and thinking about things and growing and changing and also like playing the game, you know. But at the same time, like there's other things going on, and that's the only reason I would need to do that thing, right? Like that's the only reason I would need to do keep up with the anomalies, is because this feeling of like, do I need it? And no, like that's the thing about thinking about like luxury, like K-pop Demon Hunters. It's like you think about the luxury apartment and you're like, I mean, it's okay. You know, like some things are what you make of them, and some things are what you make of them, and some things are what you like. Some things just kind of are. I tend to look at most things like they just are, and like they are or are not. And we struggle with this a lot because we think like, you know, like if you need a room or you need like a thing to think about and it just is or it isn't, then even that's hard because you're having to deal with both at the same time. You're having to deal with this is, and so I go this way, and this isn't, and so I go this way. And at the same time, it just makes enough sense. You know, like we jangle on the tracks, we wiggle on the thing until they intersect and they become parallel and they cross and they meet and it's fine and it's good. And it's hard keeping up with everything because it's like making promises. You know, like it's like making promises that this world will be good and clean and straight and, you know, and having to deal with like the promises being manifested or promises being worked on. You know, kind of like when you ask someone to promise something, you almost feel like you're in a time of desperation or need. You know, that comes back to the need thing where you're like, I need you to promise me that you'll love me. I need you to promise me that you'll care. I need you to promise me that you'll be here tomorrow. And you make that promise and you say, okay, I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here tonight. I'll be here yesterday. I'll be here forever. I'll be here always. I was always going to be here for you. And I will be there for you. Like when you kind of make this promise, you kind of exchange vows where it's like, I promise I'll be here for you. I promise I will see the way you see things. I promise I'll love you forever. I promise I'll love myself. I promise I'll figure things out. I promise like to see the way you see things. I promise to love the way you love things. I promise to do the way you do things. I promise to be clean and be perfect and be cool and be warm. And then you exchange it and it comes back to you and it's like, I promise to do the same as me. You know, as me, I promise to be there for you in the places in the dark and the things that you can't see or don't want to see, where it's like, this hair is growing on my legs and, you know, like I just don't want it to get out of hand. And it feels like it was already out of hand. Feels like, you know, like we've come in and it's already out of hand and now we need to like figure things out. And I'm comfortable figuring things out. I'm comfortable with that because that's how I, you know, live, is by figuring things out. And I feel certain about things working out. You know, like I feel like I came into the world comfortably and with wiggle room of like, this is comfortable and this is okay. And wiggle room means things go right and things go wrong, things go left, things go up, things go down, things go back, things go forth. And then you just learn a little bit and you make space a little bit and make peace. I feel like making peace is a challenge, you know, to make peace with things and say like, God, we really messed up here. We really shouldn't have done that. We really need to do this. Okay, I'll make peace with it. And peace with it is okay. Peace with it is like foundation. It's like ground to walk on. We didn't really start with things being peaceful, not really gonna end with things being peaceful, you know, because peaceful is just kind of like, it's okay. I don't really like you. I don't really need to hate you, and I don't really love you. So that's things being okay, things being peaceful, you know. And then you think about like, well, we can't stay here. Can't stay here, don't want to, you know, don't want to stay here, and can't get up and go right now. I tried. Can't go back. I don't want to try. And but I have a direction, you know. I have a way of thinking about things that says, okay, slowly. And it feels slow because it feels like I'm dealing with things I don't want to deal with, and I don't want to put them on you. And you're dealing with things that I don't want to deal with, and you might want to put them on me, you know? And I was so scared about having that kind of weight put on me where you say, I need you to take care of this. I need you to do this. I need you to just like say, this is how it is. And kind of because I need to hear it from you. And it's like learning our relationships, learning what we are and are not capable of as people. Like, it's super annoying right now having construction or noise, like a fan going off, or, you know, things that are just not helpful being helpful. Same thing with like, it's annoying not getting to be ideal because it's just not ideal. And if it were ideal, then it would be ideal for everyone, I think. And like, you know, you think about like the computer fan, like you think about it objectively. I feel like that helps. Sometimes I need the help, and sometimes I am the help. And you know, like, it comes from looking at on opposite sides of the spectrum. If you think about like, it's really uncomfortable thinking about it like this because that's just not gonna work out. But then you think about like how people can reach you. Like, it's so crazy having not fans, although fans are a real thing. Like, I have a ceiling fan. Things that keep me up at night, you know, like a baby. It is exhausting dealing with things you don't want to deal with, and exhausting dealing with things that you do, you know. Like, just now is the time where I deal with being smart. Now is that kind of time because it's challenging people around me to think and do things they don't want to do, and being challenged by myself because I feel like I'm smart, because I feel like, you know. And I thought being smart was super annoying because I always felt like I was getting feedback or just hearing things and having to learn about things I don't want to learn about, and not being able to turn that off and not being able to turn that on, and sometimes missing it, consciously missing it because it's getting on my nerves, or it is my nerves. I think of it more like this just is my nerves, and you're dick riding it. Like, you're like sitting on this one thing, and that's the point that I think life will come to, where you're sitting on this one thing, and I need you to just like move from this one thing, because that point over there, that thing over there, oh my god, if I have to show you, I'm gonna lose my mind. Here, here. I know it's like big and uncomfortable and you can't really see what's going on. Kind of the point, actually, for you not to be able to see what's going on. It's like you would just add too much, or you're just gonna make things worse. So I need you to like not do this thing. And it's so annoying because they just think they know. And and it's like those two things aren't, it creates this like finiteness about it. It creates these blind spots. That's how I think about it. It creates these like blind spots in your thinking. And you like to think, like, if you're one of those people that creates those kind of blind spots in your peripherals or something, it's like, I wear glasses because someone recommended that I wear glasses. Otherwise, I wasn't gonna wear glasses, you know? Like, and it's like you think someone profits off of that, but actually, the people that gave me glasses, they just, like, don't think about it at all. And that's the lesson in this scenario, in this case, where you think about it and you're like, I have advice for you, or I have like songs for you, or I have something for you, and I'm declining. I'm saying, no, I don't want this thing. No, find somewhere else to put it. No, it's not useful. No, it's not helpful. No, go somewhere else. No, try something else. Just like, I don't want to be a part of this thing, you know. And the weight that comes with, like, you just don't take no for an answer, and you need to, because there's this like drone outside of my window that just, I don't even know what it is. Like, what is making this noise? Such dramatically, what is making this noise outside of my window that is going that thing drives me insane, and not in a good way. It's like a way of having control of you. Honestly, honest to God, that is, I've heard that sound for ever. And after tonight, I don't want to hear it anymore. I can't listen to this anymore. It's just this one sound that, it's like, this is the thing that gets in your way from you being able to do anything else. And it's this one thing. And I just am like, can you shut up, please? Like, please, for the, I don't even think I have to do it. I just think I'm in a position where this thing, this person or whatever, this sound, this thing is doing, where they just tell me that that I have to, you know, that it's sick. You know that it gets better, it gets worse. You know that they have control over you when they do this thing, and I don't want to do it. I'm telling you, no. Like, I'm not gonna do the thing. And you can't just come back to this place and think that I'm gonna, like, keep listening to this. It's honestly so horrible, and my only option is to tell people about it. And kind of, right? Like, it's kind of where it's not interesting, and it just uses like psychology, it uses thinking, it uses things against you. That's like the whole point of using something. It's like you're using it and not being used, like, full, like not working. And that's like the power, I think, about of charging your phone. Like, if you weren't using your phone, it wouldn't run out of power, right? And it's kind of the same thing with like your mind. My mind, at least, like, this person is so obsessed, and I can't get them to go away because they are so like invasive, it's so invasive being in my ear, being in my like language, being in my body, being in my mind. Like, I can't get this person to go away. And I don't really want to show them anything either. I don't want to show them anything either because I already think this person has made things worse for me. You know? Opposite ends and sides of the spectrum, but it just doesn't make sense. And I don't really want to show them anything either. I don't want to show them anything either because I already think this person has made. I definitely think this person has made. I just think they make things worse for everyone. And somehow I can't get away from them being obsessed with me. I think that's true. I think this person just makes things bad for everyone, and they've concentrated all of their energy onto making things feel really horrible, really, really bad for me. And it's like the only choice I have is to help myself in this situation or to ask for help, because I can't get this person to leave me alone. And they just make everything bad for everyone. Like, you know what I'm saying? I just can't do this. I just, like, I can't give this person what they want because it would be the death of me. And that's what they're trying to do here, where it's like, I just need you to do this thing for me so I can, you know, like, cheat the system. I just need you to do this thing for me so I can cheat the system. And if you do that, you would never get out of the system. You would never escape. You would never be free, because you're cheating the way that things go. You're cheating life. You know, you're cheating the process, cheating yourself. You're cheating God. You're cheating death. And it's just not going to work out for you. And the only way, because misery loves company, like, if someone is miserable, I don't love company, not because I'm miserable, but because misery is around me. And I can't get out of that. Like, I have tried for years. I've tried my whole life, actually. And they have so much control over just, like, it's this one thing. There. Okay. Oh my god, this person is so I don't want to do this. It's like this one note there. I can hear it, okay, but I don't. Okay. I'm gonna What is this? Okay. I hope that's a little bit better. I think it is. It sounds a little bit better. Okay. Okay. Well, I was gonna play something. Well, I'm not sure that I was gonna play something, but since it has been heavy on the mind, I will play some chords. Yeah. Okay. And they're not perfect because I just don't love them or something. Yeah. Okay. I'm kind of waiting for the sound to resonate so that it stops. If I'm being honest, I'm a writer, not a singer. I'm a writer, not a singer. And explaining chords, you know, like those all fit within the C major scale as I've learned about them. And it's kind of like a progression. Like if I had to describe that sound, it would be dramatic. It would be dark and dramatic. I would describe that as luxurious. I would describe that as like a bounce or a luxury, like a cuddle, like a warm cuddle. I would say that it changes a little between here and there's a change. and then da-da-da, 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 ba-da-da-da, it's like a garden. It's like a garden. It's like reversing a garden. Going down a waterfall. Swimming up a riverbank. Up a riverbank. Perfect. Perfect. And good night. And good night. Good night. Good morning. I'll go to sleep. I can't sleep. Reverse the spell. Reverse it. Reverse the spell. Territory that you don't want to be in. Like the deep woods, deep dark woods, deep dark forest. Oh, it's comforting and it's reassuring. Oh, but it still feels unsettling. It still feels like you can't really hit that note. Don't really want to. Oh, but you're gonna hit the note. You're gonna hit it because why is it there? Like waking up. Like going to sleep. Waking up. Going to sleep. Oh, relief. Sorrow. Sorrow. Sadness. Love. Love. Sadness. Anger. Frustration. Tension. Grief. Tension, gravity, relief, strength, weakness, solidarity, peace. And it's a fine line because I don't want to overstep and I already feel like I have. So, okay. See if we can tackle a little bit of the low end. What the hell? What the hell? Oh, I think I've said I'm sorry before. How do I know I'm for sure? Love. Oh, I said I'm sorry before. Oh, I don't think I need this no more. Leave it behind, I don't wanna see it again. I know what it's done to my skin. Oh, crawling inside, and it feels bad like the end of the night. I said you've gone too far. I you'll never know me. No, you'll never know me. Can I say I forgive you? Say I'm for real. Just need this one thing. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry for real. Okay, sorry for real because I have to go. I have to go. Let me hear it. I mean, I can. Okay. Good. I'll do one more thing, which is me doing too much, honestly. Let's see if we can. I mean, that's cool. Okay. Sorry for real because I have to go. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm sorry. Let's not flash. It's not accidentally show off good. Yeah, great. Okay. I'm gonna go. It was nice getting to chat for a while. It's honestly so helpful doing these things. It's so helpful. Let's do something else. Yeah? Let's do. I'm gonna pick a wind, I think. I like these little like blown bottles. That's fine. Oof. They just make a nice like I know that's really high up there. I know that's really high. And here's the low end. Woo! It just tackles this like high end. It's like it's too soon. Too soon. These are sounds that I love. Oof, I love them. Malaman. Ooh, that's low. Boo 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 boo. Boo 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 boo. Lap, lap, lap. I don't know what it's gonna take, honestly. Like, I think it's just finding the sound, but it's not just finding like one note or one pitch. Like, I mean, it's kind of, but kind of, and also kind of like. I don't know what it's gonna take, honestly. Like, I think it's just finding the sound. I also can't fix my like. Finding like one note or one pitch. Like, I mean. Why is has this been off to the side the whole time? Kind of, and also kind of like. Like, I think finding the sound. I also can't fix my like. Good. Good. Okay. I know. Okay, I kind of know. The request is like, can you sing? Can I sing? I just made this thing. It's not very good, so kind of, but I can sing. It's hard. It's hard, but I. What up? I think it'll be easier once I can like write my own songs. In my head, I'm always singing. In my head, I'm always singing. I'm, you know, like, not just a big empty brain, like. It'd be so nice to have this just like stop. That's one of my favorite sounds. I guess. Getting somewhere. I like the checkpoint, save your progress. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna go. Sing songs, write melodies, write down your thoughts, like write them down and don't think them out loud. And thanks for sticking around. Keep an eye out for anomalies, but don't be an anomaly yourself. And honestly, yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. I have no idea. I have no idea. I want to try something. I want to try something. I want to see if this thing I made last night still sounds good. Like, does it sound different? Let me see. Oh god. Oh, okay. The answer is no, it doesn't sound good. Ugh. It sounds like it's like like that's how it sounds. This is how I write melodies. This is how I write songs. It's tough because they start as ideas. It's like I have, or like I can just like hear them. Like I hear this and I'm like, okay, I know it's not very good, but like I see, right? I hear how it could be good, and then it's like, in my head this whole melody is going, and I don't think it's just because it's my vocals. I think it's like I can just process it. I can imagine that this would maybe sound good, and it takes a lot of effort to do that because it's like it doesn't sound good. Kind of have to break it down into sections, kind of. Kind of have to break it down to sections where it's like oh, I guess that's part of the harmony, the harmonics. I guess that's part of it, you know. Oh, there's the notes that are already there. Oh, and then there's the notes that you put on top of it or below it or scoop through it or you dig out and you go like, ah, like kind of like that, like, and it just peaks. You guys know what peaking is? You know what peaking is when you're editing or you're writing songs or you're editing videos or something and something starts to peak? I always thought that was so fascinating. But okay, so you have like a threshold in music and a threshold in everything. But okay, so you have a threshold in music, and when you go over the top of the threshold, you basically become like, you peak, which is like being at the top of like Everest or something, and everybody can see you on the top of Everest. It's crazy, but it's true. So, oh, also the threshold is made up of people, so it's like if you want to be in charge of the threshold, it's like, okay, I don't really want to hear you right now, I don't really need to hear you, then it's like lower the threshold, you know, like pan it down, or like, you know, like you can just like adjust the threshold. So it doesn't need to be like I'm screaming over the top of you. It can be like, yo, chill out just a little bit, and it just makes it easier, honestly. Oh, I felt like you, man. You say. This is how I edit. I edit like this all day long. I don't know if I'll ever finish a project, actually. I don't know if I'll ever finish a project. Most of the time when I put things out, it's because there's like a hard deadline of like, if you don't do this right now, you're never going to do it. Which is like, I feel like the opposite of like, hey, you should probably do this and you should probably just get it done sooner rather than later. Which is kind of how I feel about life. So I don't know if I'll ever make something that I like, because I always feel like there's a ton of pressure to make it perfect and just right, and that's why I kind of take my time with this kind of thing. I hope that makes sense. forgot this bass was, or these drums were going kind of dumb. Yeah, these kind of things are they're really hard. Actually, these are really hard to make. These are really hard to do. For a number of reasons. They're challenging. I feel like that's it. Like, I'm just kind of, I always feel like that's it. I feel like I got it. I feel like I understand it. I feel like I know it. And then you move one thing and it's like, it's starting over. It's like, what? I just have to, I was just there. I just did the thing. I just, yada yeezy yah. And I move one thing and it's like, oh damn, like, you had it here. You had it. And then sometimes that's how I end up going back when I listen to people that are like, you had it. And then I was like, oh, let me just go back and like EQ it, like, or like, let me go back and like fix it or something. And it was like, no, I had it right the first time. And then you just want to steal it. You just want to like jack it or something. Like, I can't see. I look kind of crazy when I'm looking around without my glasses on because I just have them on for people. Honestly, I have them. You move one thing. You move one thing and the whole structure falls apart. It's devastating. And that's why you have to know deep down, you have to know deep down, because eventually it'll be like, oh, this is perfect, this is great, I love it, and there's, you know, like, it'll be like, I love it, but I feel like that's part of like what the pride thing, like, you have to be proud of it until you love it, which kind of sucks a lot. It sucks because it'll lose its form, it'll lose its sensibility if you don't hold on to it until it gets to the point where you want it to be. Which is, again, it's insane to me because it's like a lot of what I've done with my room, with my computer, with my tech, with my life, you know. And I imagine that's how it goes for like writing songs, making albums, having fans, going to school, having friends, relationships. I just imagine that is how it is for everything. You know, trying to like be perfect and also be kind of far apart from the thing you're trying to do. And there's just all this like space in between. And when you get far apart, it can go in any direction rather than it just being like, oh, I really like this one thing. But actually, it's everything that I like about it, and I hope that makes sense. It does to me. I feel like I've done good here today, so I'm gonna actually wrap this up so I can go, as you know. And thank you for tuning in, I think. I guess it's me. I need to tune in as well, so I'll be doing that and bidding you farewell until our next stream. Things get easier, things get better. I figure things out, I get something new, I unlock something, I open my third eye chakra, and it's all great. Okay.